Holy shit. Oh, no. Ooh. All right, so let's get to work on this 4.8 LS. And if you haven't seen the first 2 episodes of the build series, I bought a 1974 Corvette Stingray in okay condition, but definitely has some engine problems. All right, runs pretty good. Oh, we're dying. And in the second episode, I bought a clapped out box, low mileage 2003 GMC Yukon and tore the LS engine and transmission out of it to swap into the Corvette. I'm so excited to have this thing. I knew it was only a matter of time before I owned another LS engine, and 99,000 miles is pretty incredible for one of these like original LS motors. But it's definitely very, very dirty, especially for 99,000 miles. This lived its life in an SUV, so I'm sure cleanliness wasn't really a high priority. So the very first thing I want to do is go ahead and give this guy a pressure wash. All right, before I hit this thing with the pressure washer, it looks like I have one broken exhaust manifold bolt. I've got these pretty serious vice grips here, so we'll see if this works. Well, I was starting it and I broke it off right inside of the threads there. I think I was kind of going at it at an angle. I was kind of getting impatient, so that's my fault, but it was coming out. So I think if I just drill in there, I'll use an easy out and this thing should come right out. All right, much better. Starting to look like an LS motor again. So I think the next step for me is to get this thing back on the engine lift and tip this thing over, because I went ahead and just ran my garden hose through the water pump inlets, and I want to get all of the non-distilled like tap water out of this thing that I can. Then we'll take off the oil pan and the transmission oil pan, because I'm going to have to replace this truck oil pan. The people say it's a little bit too deep for a C3 Corvette, and the F-Body pan, which is this bad boy right here, from like an LS1 Camaro from like the late 90s, early 2000s, is the right one to use. All right, there we go. Looks awesome. This is exactly what you want to see. This definitely looks like a low mileage motor. Let's do a little magnet in there. See what we come up with. Nice. Nothing. That's good to see. That's very relieved to see this in such good condition. All right, so let's take a look at these two pans. Huge difference. I didn't realize how much bigger that sump was than the Camaro pan here. So that pretty much says it all. Supposedly this thing hangs down like way too low here in the Corvette. Obviously, you can see that oil pan's gonna sit somewhere in there. I guess right behind that cross member. So the sump should hang out somewhere around. Actually, you know what? No, I think, there you go. There's where the current sump is. So that's pretty much the shape that we're looking at here. Basically a rear sump oil pan, and supposedly this F-Body oil pan's also gonna give you some clearance up here too. This does look a little bit thicker, whereas this guy has a little bit of a bump up right here. And I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, that this clears the steering ram right there. This guy. I guess we'll just find out, but yeah, I think with that truck pan, it's probably just about touching the ground. So that's awesome. Probably lose a little bit of oil capacity on this guy, but it was good enough for an LS1 Camaro, so I'm sure it'll be good enough for this guy. Cool. So let's get this one cleaned up, and I gotta switch out a couple other things as well. A pickup tube and the windage tray as well. All right, got the pickup tube and the windage tray off. Here's a little look at the crankshaft. Looks pretty good, I guess. Ooh, there's the timing chain. Looks like a timing chain. Nice. Oh, hey, I can see the camshaft. To me, all this stuff looks pretty good. Cool. My old friend, the oil pickup tube O-ring. Oh, these things make me nervous. I learned the hard way to be very careful when putting this guy in there. And I'm gonna put a little bit of lubrication on this thing too, I think. All right, got everything back in, and I'm pretty sure I got that O-ring in there. You can see this thing is looking good, flat against the thing. I think the thing you gotta worry about is the O-ring getting pinched and causing a little bit of space in there, which basically makes your oil pressure drop and will toast your engine. So this tiny little O-ring is just so important. Well, it looks okay. I'm gonna call it good and watch my oil pressure very carefully when I start this thing up for the first time. All right, next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and take off these valve covers, and I'll go ahead and replace those gaskets while I'm in there. Wow, look at that. Beautiful. I think this is the nicest looking top end I've ever seen on a on a used motor I bought. Awesome, that's good. That's very good to see. Kind of on a roll here. I think I'm gonna go ahead and I'll get this all cleaned up, of course. We'll get a new gasket on there and we'll throw it back on. some pretty good work today. Got this thing looking a little bit fresher. And I gotta say, it's starting to grow on me. When it was just a complete ball of dirt, when I pulled it out of the engine bay, it was fine. But now with these fresh valve covers, semi-degreased, it's actually starting to look pretty good. So I think I'll call it a day. I'll put it down on this thing and roll it back into the corner. All right, so it's the next day, and I'm realizing that I totally forgot to mention earlier that I got new wheels. These are the original style Chevy rally wheels with a tire size that actually fits in the wheel well, and in my opinion, just the right look for this thing. So much more classy. And a vintage Corvette is a classy car after all. Anyway, so we're pulling out this engine today, this old Chevy 350. It's going to be a little challenging. Let me flip this camera around and I'll show you. This will be a little bit different than most engine pulls because this front end is super long, so there's no way my engine crane is going to make it over about 4 feet of front nose on this car. So I think the method of choice is to come at it from the side. We'll see. Let's get started. We got this thing pretty much all disconnected. I think it's about there. I got the transmission mount disconnected and the jack underneath the transmission. I got the drive shaft off, and I think I got the headers off and the exhaust is all clear. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have to remove this. I don't think I have to. I kind of don't want to remove this thing, so I'm gonna give it a shot. We'll give it a try. We'll do like a crazy angle and see if we can get this out without having to take this thing out. But I think we're ready to put on the load leveler, get the crane out, and we'll see if we can yank this thing out of here. Okay, I got this thing on the load leveler, got this thing all chained up, got the front wheel off so that I can actually swing this thing just barely under that wheel right there, I think. Yeah. So I guess the idea is to kind of lift this thing up like this and swing this out this way. Try very hard not to knock that little jack and jack stand so my car doesn't come crashing down in the front, and maybe like kind of pivot it out over into this area, I suppose. Okay, here we go. All right, that was a little bit sketchy, a little bit scary when it was hanging over the front end, but no damage, just a little bit of coolant. And there it is. Yeah, I don't know, this definitely looks like this thing is maybe not ever been out of the car. I don't know, it's hard to say. These things are so old. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and like pretty quickly here pull off this transmission, because I've actually sold this thing already, so he's gonna be here pretty quickly to pick this thing up. So let's pull that thing off of here, and then we'll deal with the engine. All right, I got these two separated, and I did a whole lot of cleaning up because it was a little bit dangerous. It was a little bit slippery and kind of dangerous in here. So feels good to have this motor out, and I'm happy I didn't do any damage to my car. And hopefully these two will be gone tomorrow. They're both spoken for, so we'll get these out of here and we'll move on to the LS. And there's one thing I noticed I thought was kind of funny. I think somebody JB welded these mufflers on. I've seen a lot of weird car like hacks in my day, but this one is definitely a first for me. Oh, there you go. Yep, it's nice and loose there. So exhaust leak is an understatement with this car. I also found these two mid pipes were really not even clamped on. You could actually just kind of wiggle them in their sockets. So this will definitely be a lot nicer sounding after all of this stuff is fixed. In fact, that's probably why it sounded so crazy, so like tractor-ish. Good riddance. I'll probably keep these pipes, but I'll definitely be, I guess, ungluing these mufflers here, and we'll get something better on there. All right, it's the next day, and I think before I do any more work to this engine bay, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a good pressure wash, because there's lots and lots of years of oil and dirt caked on pretty much everything in here. So I think I'll go ahead and hose this guy down real quick, and then I think we'll get to work removing stuff that we're not gonna need, namely the air conditioner box. All right, much better. This thing has officially been degreasified. So I think the next thing I want to do is remove this this huge like air conditioning box. It obviously does not work. I'm missing a lot of pieces for the air conditioning, and if I'm gonna put air conditioning in, which I probably never will because this is a convertible, but if I were to, I'd be doing some sort of like, you know, vintage air modern system, which doesn't require any sort of engine bay box. So I'm going to remove that because I'm worried that that's going to interfere with maybe my headers or something like that. And it'll save some weight and clean it up in here a little bit. All right, finally got this thing out of here. There were some bolts hidden back here that were really a pain, but I got them out. We're good. And I do have a cover coming in the mail. It's like a special, I guess like a fiberglass cover that seals this thing back off, but this looks so much better without all that stuff in there. And maybe we can get some money for this thing. Maybe, we'll see. All right, that's enough breathing paint fumes, I think, for today. And this looks pretty good, actually. This came out really nice. So a lot of the steel here was like not pitted at all, so it came out really smooth. I like it. Since that engine's gonna be a lot cleaner than the old one, I think this clean engine bay is gonna do it justice. Just a little bit of rust down here. I think that's pretty normal, but it's still very strong. So I went ahead and knocked off all of the loose rust with a wire brush and then hit it with some rust neutralizer before hitting it with the black paint. That's all taken care of. So I think this thing is officially ready to be swapped, which we'll start on in the next episode.